Let's move from home and again to abroad. Now, in an interview with AP and Russia's First Channel, Russia's President Vladimir Putin says that he does not rule out approving a military operation if there is clear evidence that the regime carried out the attacks. Take a listen.
Russia will be ready to take strong action if we have exact and unbiased information about who committed these crimes and what weapons were used. We will take a principled stand, as we firmly believe the use of weapons of mass destruction is a crime. But we think we should at least wait for the UN inspectors to give their report. Certainly those pictures of dead children are just hideous, but they don't prove anyone's guilt. Even in the US, some experts think the evidence presented by the administration is not compelling. It's possible that the opposition staged a provocation in order to give their patrons an excuse for military intervention.
But the US and France say that they are prepared to launch strikes without a UN resolution because they do not believe that Putin would use his veto. Now, Putin reiterated that he was not convinced by the data presented by Washington on the alleged chemical attack. He said footage of murdered children was, quote, horrible, but not enough proof that the regime was behind it. So, Lara, Moscow is clearly Syria's strongest ally on this, and Putin said that Russia will continue to supply the Assad regime with arms until there's clear evidence. So you really believe that they would support a military strike even if the evidence is there?
I'd be very skeptical. Watch out for the geopolitics here. You have Russia trying to position itself to somehow not seem to be too close to the Assad regime, and the truth is it's Russia and Iran support that's really kept the Assad regime going this long. Russia knows that. And you also see the Assad regime saying some very interesting things in the past 24 hours. Faisal Muqdad, the deputy foreign minister, speaking to the Wall Street Journal and basically saying, we love America. We don't want more with America. Very kind of combination of a love song and watch your back, because he also said that if you do strike, we're going to hit Jordan, Turkey, Israel, if they're any part of this strike. So this is high-level diplomacy playing out. Very, very sophisticated geopolitics. Very, very kind of convenient and inconvenient timing that on Thursday, President Obama will be in Russia for the G20, sitting down somehow with Vladimir Putin. You know, these are very sophisticated kind of positions and acts of public diplomacy that each one of these players is making to try to come off as the reasonable one, because this is, in a way, also a battle in the court of public opinion on a global scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And Josh, I want to ask you this, just talking a little bit more about steps forward. NATO hasn't moved forward so far because of the absence of a UN mandate, and that's something that's been under much discussion, but that's not required under the rules of the NATO alliance. So, I mean, how realistic would a NATO-framed intervention be?
It doesn't sound like it's that realistic right now, but you know, you can end up with a sort of quasi-NATO type thing. I mean, with Turkey gets involved and a couple other countries, but this seems like it's going to be a little bit of a cobbled together operation. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and I always think that when it comes to NATO, it's kind of that last call, like, you know, it was the Kosovo sort of like last dash, or UN's not really doing anything. There's NATO, let's go for them. You know, Lara, I want to ask you this, though, just like he's pushing for Congress, do you believe that Obama should make a hard push for NATO involvement, you know, if, as Josh says, that we get to the point where maybe that's an option?
I don't know how much more President Obama would gain from NATO's involvement. If you have the UK and Germany pretty committed to not being part of a strike, but trying to play this sort of middle ground, I don't know if he's going to get NATO and if it's going to be worth the push for him. It's really hard to say. A lot will be decided at that G20 meeting. We're going to see if Russia, even the Assad regime, move to a more, let's say, reasonable position, or let's say more kind of negotiable position as a result of just the threat of a strike, now that they take it seriously. And if that happens, then there's a chance that this can all be resolved without a strike at all. If there's still kind of Russia and US sort of butting heads after this weekend, there's a real chance the US and France will feel like they need to do this with or without NATO.